Hello everyone, this is Ambbali Bhattacharya Datta from amebyambbali Art Cafe. As I promised that soon I will start beginners tutorial as was getting a lot of requests from you all. So here I am today starting the tutorial series for the beginners. First of all, I would like to congratulate you for choosing this beautiful medium that will make your creative journey so memorable and joyful, trust me. Watercolor is a beautiful medium to work with. I know you will say that it is the most difficult one, the most unruly one, and I won't disagree with it. It is unforgiving and very hard to control. It is one of the most difficult medium. To correct myself, it is the most difficult medium. You cannot modify once the painting is done. You cannot go and correct it again. So it is very unruly. But trust me that I think that is the beauty, and with time, I'm certain that you will fall in love with it. Only key is the practice to understand the medium better, to understand how it works. Practice is the key. Once you befriend the medium and start understanding how it works, you will be unstoppable, and the happiness you will gain from doing this medium is undescribable. Um, with this series of beginners tutorial, we will try to understand the mind of the medium and learn a few basic techniques with some elaborate illustrations along with it. Practice the techniques as much as possible to master it. As I'm saying again and again, that practicing is the key. The more you will practice, the more you will understand from your own mistakes. That things I cannot teach you. For a nice watercolor, we need few basic things like the watercolor papers, the brushes, the pigments. These are the things that really make a lot of difference, and we need to learn that what kind of the paper we need to use, what kind of brush we need to use, and what are the pigments. We need to learn the name of the pigments, and we'll learn today few of the basic techniques, and we'll do a illustration with it to understand it better. So let's start with the paper. For watercolor, we need to understand that we cannot do watercolor on just on any other paper like a cartridge sheet or on canvas. No, we cannot do that. Watercolor has its own specific paper, and the papers, there are a lot of brands available nowadays. Even in India, there are a lot of brands available now. You can buy through Amazon. There are Canson, there are Fabriano, Arches, Lana Aquarelle, lot of good brands, and good brands are very very important because most of your work, like whatever you do, the paper really affects your work a lot, and you have to make sure while buying the paper that few basic things are correct. First of them are the thickness of the paper. So when I'm saying the thickness of the paper, you can see, I don't know how much visible it is. Watercolor papers are thick papers. It is very important because it needs to absorb the water that you are using for the painting, and it should not get a flood on the paper. Or if the paper GSM, the thickness of the paper is called GSM, if it is not correct, then your paper will crumble and it will get spoiled. With the brush, the surface of the paper will rubbed off. So make sure the paper is 100% cotton, and it is more than 250 GSM or 300 GSM. I use cold pressed papers. Cold pressed papers, you can see the texture of the paper. It has a kind of texture to it. Hot pressed papers are smooth, and rough paper are rough, as the name suggests. So I use mostly cold pressed paper. I use mostly Arches and Fabriano, and I'm trying this new paper called Lana Aquarelle. I used it for one of my painting recently, and I really liked it. They are nice, bright white, and the thickness is awesome, and I like the texture it has. You get this kind of texture on Arches also. Arches rough has very rough texture, and it is advisable to use when once you can once you're very confident about your strokes. So these are the basic things about the papers. They may be little expensive. There are less expensive papers are also available, but I will say when you are learning something, you are always looking for a desired effect, and once you don't get that, you feel frustrated. So avoid that frustration. It is better to invest a little more money on the tools, on the papers, on the brush. Coming to the brush, these are the watercolor brushes that I normally use. Different brands. Mostly I use this one. This is wet right now, and you can see the tips, all of them, like see the tips of the brushes. The tips are very fine and very good for detailing. This is a smaller brush, this is a thicker brush obviously, and it holds a lot of water, very good amount of water, and it holds lesser water. This is a small work, and this is for the, I actually use this brush for all kind of painting and even for the fine detailing because of the tips and its capacity to hold the waters. Even this brush is beautiful. I got it as a gift from Art Lounge, and this is number 10 art essential. I'm using it. I'm planning to buy few more of them because I loved this brush. They also have a good range of mop brushes, and I'm planning to buy few of them because I am very happy with it. The bristles are very nice and holds lots of water. Then there are few this not so expensive mop brushes that I bought it from the local market. These are good for background wash and mop, like flat wash. So watercolor brushes, they are very specific, and the bristles are soft, not hard and stiff, very flexible, and once they're wet, the tip of the brush has to be very nice, pointed, and it should not shade its hair, because that sometimes gets stuck on the painting on the paper and can spoil it. So even investing a little more money in the brush is always advisable. And if you think that Escoda brush is a little expensive, but it is like a lifetime investment, and art essentials are not that expensive, and it is very good if you are a beginner. And even fine art brush, if you are holding the brush for first time and you don't want to really invest a lot of money, then fine art brushes are good for beginners who do not want to invest a lot of money and want to give it a try. So coming to the pigments now, I use 2-3 brands for the watercolor. One is this is my mostly used, you can see from the palette. It's messy but beautiful. This is White Nights watercolor, and I love this watercolor. They're beautiful, vibrant, saturated. You do not need many layers to get that vibrancy. These are very good, and I love the palette. Selection of the pigments are very good. This is Payne's Gray, this is deep orange, and mostly ultramarine blue, then burnt raw umber, yellow ochre. So you have everything that I have everything that I need for this for my paintings. I do not use very elaborate palette for my work. Then I use this one very frequently. This is also very nice, mini tiny watercolor, very pretty looking. This is Sennelier Aqua Mini. You can get all these things from Amazon. I use Daniel Smith watercolors a lot. I mostly use their tubes because they do not come in like the watercolor cakes in India. I don't know about abroad. So I use mostly their cool gray, their Payne's Gray, their blues and greens. They have amazing range of blues and greens. So if these are white knight watercolor and aquamini, these are not very expensive, and Daniel Smith is a little heavy on the pocket, but as I said, always buying good tools are like good investment, so it's totally up to you. So these are the basic things that we need to have to start our journey for the watercolor. And there is one thing, this is the sponge that is very necessary, I'll say, because every time you dip the brush in the water and you take the extra water, it soaks the extra water, because using tissues and all, sometimes the tissue papers are thin and they get stuck on the bristles and ended up stucking on the painting, and sometimes annoying. So using a sponge, keep it handy to your nearby where you're painting. It's very useful and very helpful. Another important thing that you need to remember, that when we're sketching for the watercolor, we do not want our lines to be seen, or the lines to be very dark, and for that I use this pencil from Color Graphite Aquarelle. This is a HB one, and this is very light. If you see, this is very light, and this is water soluble, as the name suggests. This is a aquarelle pencil, so this line will get diluted in the water, so you hardly can see any line now. So because I use this pencil, because I don't want my lines to be visible after the painting. And another very important tool is this. Can you guess what is this? This is a kneaded eraser. You can give it a shape as you want. It's very useful. I use it, this is mostly used for charcoal paintings and all, and I use it because it does not, you don't need to rub it, you just need to touch it and it will pick up the graphite. You do not need to rub this on the paper. So since the watercolor papers are very delicate, it will rub off if you erase it with a normal paper, a normal eraser. So it will sometimes spoils the texture of the paper and make the paper very rough and not workable with the water. So this is very safe to use, and you can also give it a shape according to how you want. So these are the few basic tools that we need, and let's go to the next step, that is learning the basic techniques. So in watercolor we need to remember that it is very transparent, and that is the beauty. We do not use few basic characteristics. It is transparent. We do not use lot of pigment like acrylic or oil. You use a very little pigment and dilute it with the water and then apply it on the paper, and do not use we do not, I normally do not use white to paint something white. Sometimes I use white for to highlight some specific areas, but in this painting the white, you see all the houses and all, it is all the whiteness of the paper, so we leave the white and work accordingly. And you can see in this painting that in the sky is very transparent. When I'm saying transparent, that means you can see through the color, you can see through the whiteness, the color, you can see through the color, the whiteness of the paper. So this is called the transparency of the medium, and that is the beauty of the watercolor. So these are the few things that we need to remember, and let's try. So I'll be taking my number 10 art essential brush, this one. And we will be doing a basic wash that is called flat wash, that is wet on dry surface. Flat wash, as the name suggests, there is nothing, it's just a flat wash, plain simple wash. no texture, nothing. So this is flat wash. Very easy, very simple, no texture, just a wash. I hope it is visible now. Then, so this is a simple flat wash and it is wet on dry. It means what? That your brush is wet and the paper is dry. You are using the wet brush on the dry surface of the paper. Second is graded wash. It's a little tricky, but just few practice will help you to do this. So this is graded wash. I am using a little bit of water and adding clear water. To make it more impactful, I'm adding a little bit of pigment and adding so you can see that the color is gradually going down with the water flowing. It's beautiful texture, and these are used for sometimes for the sky, sometimes for the rainy road, I mean after the rain and the reflections on the road. It looks beautiful. This is a very beautiful and mostly used technique for the watercolor. It is little tricky that you might feel a little difficult to gain the same effect on the first try, but at least try for 7-8 times and you will see the progress. So this is graded wash. And the third one of the very useful one is wet on wet. We did wet on dry here, and this is wet on wet. Wet on wet means we will wet the surface area of the paper with a clear water and then wet the brush and add colors. You can see the color, the pigments are blooming because it's wet, the paper surface is wet and it's taking its own shape, it's spreading of its own, and it is useful for doing trees, clouds, and a lot of other things to create textures. It's beautiful. It is little hard to control. With practice you will achieve that and you will understand how it works. In one day you might feel that it's difficult, but if you practice it like this for some times, you will gradually understand how it works. So these are the 3 basic techniques we have learned today, and I will suggest that you practice them because it looks sometimes effortless and very easy, but when you do it you feel frustrated because it's not happening. But trust me, with practice you will achieve this. Remember, Rome was not built in a day, so you have to have the patience. Patience is the key for the watercolor. So you have to have patience and you have to practice it for some time to achieve that effect. So I'll do a very quick illustration here, like a few minutes illustration. The things we have learned So I'm doing a flat wash here for the sky. And for the car, I'm doing wet on dry. I will assume this is a imaginary work, so I'll assume this is a road, and just maybe it rain, and just after the rain, and there is a reflection of the car on the road. So this is the graded wash that we learned. Then again, this is dry, so wet on dry, just some faraway buildings. Because I don't want the color to bleed here, so I make sure that this is wet. This is dry, sorry. The previous wash is dry, and some faraway buildings, and it's again dry on wet. So you can see how it looks now, and as I said, this brush, I'm using the brush for the washes also, or the fine detailing also. So it's a very quick um, just a kind of a very quick illustration of the techniques that we have learned from here: graded wash and the flat wash and wet on dry, wet on wet. So that's how it looks right now. Very fast track and uh, impressionistic work, just to make you understand the use of these techniques. So that's how it looks, and this is what we learned today. So you need a lot of practice to do this, and we will learn today how to use this painting little elaborately with another painting. I'm going to paint two cherries by using these techniques, and so that you understand better, because this was a very quick and short illustration. So if you find this video helpful, do not forget to subscribe to my channel for more upcoming tutorials for the beginners and as well for the advanced level. And press the bell buttons for the notifications, and share with your friends who have similar interest, who has a sense of creativity and who loves to paint. So share with them, and let me know in the comment section how you find this tutorial, and what are the other subjects that you want me to cover. You can DM me on my Instagram, that is Ambbali_Bhattacharya_art, and you can write it on the comment section below as well. So thank you for all the love and the motivation that you always shower on me. So let's get started with the cherries, and let's see how it works with these techniques. So let's get started. Here I am doing the very first wash, that is a wet on dry, and I'm using vermilion hue, well diluted in the water. I mean more of water and less of pigment. In watercolor we always go light to dark, and we build up the intensity by working on layers. You certainly do not want to add a lot of pigments at one go and want to make it look opaque and dirty at some times. The beauty lies in the translucency. I have added clear water at the background and want my wash to bleed a little bit, and since this is a loose watercolor with more of impressionistic approach, I want to create a nice mood for the painting, make it look more appealing, and make it look more creative. This can be a little tricky and little difficult if you are doing it for first time or second time. For the first time you may want to skip doing it, but I suggest you should try if you love loose watercolor. It might not be perfect for the first time, but certainly after a few paintings you will see the progress and you'll be more confident. Practicing the same will help you to relax your mind, lose your hand, lose your mind, and make it more flexible, and you will be more confident about your strokes gradually. But if you skip it and you keep it every time for the next painting and succumb to the fear, you will and at the same time you will love loose watercolor. The dissatisfaction is very horrible, and I hate it. So try it from the beginning. Try to be playful and little forgiving to yourself. For the second wash, it is weight on weight, and adding a little bit of crimson lake mixed with vermilion hue. And you need to remember, every time you do the strokes, you should follow the shape of the object to achieve the three-dimensional effect. The white areas I have left are the white areas that where the lights are hitting, and this is the highlighted area, and I have worked on the dark values around surrounding it. For the third wash, I want the colors to merge well without leaving any hard edges, and using crimson lake and vermilion hue mixed with ultramarine blue for the darker value. So we can see that the cherries are taking shapes with this wash, and my background was that I have done with the clear water in the first wash. After the first wash is a little bit dry now because I don't want the dark values to bleed there. So you need a little bit of planning when you do the loose watercolor. It's not that difficult. With practice you will understand how it works, because watercolor has its own mind and you will understand it only with practice. So adding a little bit of darker value to the bodies of the cherries. And we can see that the color that bleeds in the previous wash is creating a nice mood and adding more fluidity and a sense of spontaneity to the work, and I love that. If you love impressionistic and loose watercolor like me, you are certainly going to love the effect, and when you do it yourself it gives a sense of joy. Now added the stem of the cherries with dark green mixed with Payne's grey, and make sure their lines are not too straight and very defined to avoid make it look like artificial cherries. Now the almost the final layer, more of ultramarine blue, crimson lake and vermilion hue mixed, and this with this strokes or this value is adding shapes to the cherries, and these are obviously on wet on dry paper, because I certainly do not want these dark values to bleed on the paper. Used sap green for the leaves, not very defined, just few strokes, and sap green for the lighter area of the stems of the cherry to give that light effect, because the light is coming from the right side. Mixed crimson lake and ultramarine blue for the shadow, and you can see the shadows are merging with the bleeded colors, and it's creating a beautiful effect. Doing loose watercolor is more about the expression than copying the subject, because it's not a hyper realistic or realistic work. And I believe it's a very beautiful way of expression, seeing the color playing with the water and taking its own shape. It's so healing and so joyful. The process itself brings a lot of happiness. And sometimes accident happens, and but sometimes the accident make it look very beautiful, and we call it sweet accident. And that's the beauty of the watercolor. I have added darker values where the cherries are touching the ground to give it a nice shape and make it look more realistic. So here it looks, both the cherries with more of impressionistic and loose approach. So if you like it, do not forget to subscribe my channel, and share with your friends who have similar interest like you, and you can comment on the below section about what you want to learn from me more. I will see you next week. Thank you so much for watching.